Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Razorpay Engineering Vlogs. I'm Abhay. I work as a staff engineer at Razorpay. I have here with me Kajol, who is an engineering manager at Razorpay. We are here to talk about engineering excellence at Razorpay. We are trying to do this slightly differently this time. What we've done is we collated a popular set of questions that people have asked about Razorpay engineering culture and sort of questions on how do we achieve best engineering practices. So we're going to try to answer some of those questions today. So let's get started. Kajol will take the first question. So let's see.
Hi.
Kajol.
Yeah. So the first question of today's discussion is, how does Razorpay define engineering excellence and why is it important? So before going to actual definition and importance, I just want to quote two lines from internet which we stole. One thing is engineering is not just about making things work, it's about making things work better. And second line is, good software design is like good wine, it takes time. So both of the lines, I think we believe as part of Razorpay culture, you can say that where engineering excellence is not only about making functional product per se. Like if you're given a requirement, if you're given a product, you're just not coding it and delivering it functionally. But we also look at other aspects of engineering, such as how technically it is built, how excellent it will be when it is actually used by our customers. So we keep that customer first mindset. Then how will be operating in production once that product goes live. So it all combined make that product or that feature work better. And of course, I think we will discuss more in detail in the later sections. But of course, if you're delivering something such good or such with excellence, it will take time. You will have to make few trade-offs in your maybe development, maybe planning. But we keep functional plus non-functional aspects of engineering when we are delivering something. So now it is important as in every aspect of your product delivery, when you're building, when you're designing, and finally when you're operating or when you're delivering to customer. So combined, I think we'll speak more how we are adhering to this culture and how we are fostering this culture to our engineers.
Okay, we'll take the next question. How does Razorpay promote engineering excellence culture? It is very important to not just set the engineering excellence guidelines, but also promote it actively. And it should sort of become part of the process throughout the SDLC life cycle. If you take, for example, we start with documentation. How well do you write those documents? How much detailing is present there? And if you look at development, what sort of automations are there in present for enabling faster development? To give an example, how can we quicken the code reviews? Are there any automations that can be done to reduce the review time? Few things that I've observed is we use tools like AJS, ReviewDog. So we use Golang, and ReviewDog is an excellent tool which can sort of provide which can automatically understand what are the issues in your PR and decorate the PR with certain watches that could be caught easily, so that the reviewer has to spend less time on the syntax and stuff and more time on the business logic. So and if I talk about deployments, ensuring that we detect any issues early. So we do a lot of canary rollouts and we do mirror testing. So these sort of practices are sort of present as part of the process. And excellence not just includes within the SDLC lifecycle, but it also includes post deployment. Let's say if an incident happens, how do we handle that incident? Like how do we perform an RCA? It is not just enough that we fix the issue, but also to sort of deep down into it and figure out what went wrong. So we follow something called the 5 why analysis, where we sort of arrive at the root cause of the problem using the 5 why technique. And this helps us figure out the underlying root cause and come up with action items as to how to fix it. So far, what I talked about is part of the process aspect of it. But here the question is more on how to promote engineering excellence culture. where the emphasis on culture. How do we promote that? Uh, One of the important things when it comes to establishing culture is mentorship, because that's how all the best practices and the guidelines that we follow percolates from one engineer to other engineer. So we have a good mentorship program where one level of engineer mentors the a level below, and so on. And we also have cross collaboration where, say, if I'm working on a particular feature and I want to get feedback for that feedback for whatever I'm come up with some solution. So it is not just my team who reviews it. It is also there are sponsors available for review where there are senior engineers who can actually sponsor your solution or your tech stack, and they can give you feedback as to how to write it better, what are the other approaches and stuff, and that helps enable learning. All of these things sort of ensure that excellence culture is followed throughout the system.
So the third question is, how does Razorpay measure and assess the quality of engineering outcomes? And what metrics or indicators we use here? Again, I think that this is again one of the important questions and common questions which I hear from maybe the new joinees in the team or who joins Razorpay. Few things which I want to highlight. The top is, because we are talking about quality of engineering outcomes, so we will talk about quality score. So we define quality score as maybe one of it is code coverage, how much code is covered under test cases. And we definitely segregate the use cases what we have in our code base or in our product, that what are the P0 use case, what are P1, which can be, maybe taken later, or which can be, even if they are not covered in code, it won't impact that much. But we definitely prioritize based on the importance of the flows, and we include code coverage as part of our CI/CD pipeline, so that maybe we can block the PR if it is going below a certain threshold of code coverage, or we can encourage engineers that, okay, yeah, clap that you have increased the code coverage, right? So that just motivates developers, and they keep in mind that they have to focus on quality score of their code base, what they are working on. There are few things which again comes under quality, that how the complex code you have written, is your function going beyond 20 lines, 30 lines, or if you are not reusing the functionality which is written by someone else, or you are maybe hard coding the variables, you are not using proper naming convention or constants like that. All these combined gives a quality score of a pull request, you can say. Other thing after development, of course, comes that what you developed, what you made live, what is the outcome in production for that. It's very possible that you will find few production bugs or some other system went down, so your code also got impacted, all that thing. So incidents, how do we handle incidents, or how do we measure incidents, is another thing we keep in mind. So there are few factors, something like mean time to reduce or mean time to detect the production issue. Is every engineer keep in mind, and we take goals around that. That okay, we have to adhere the mean time to reduce, that we shouldn't maybe we should not take 30 minutes to just to detect the issue or to recover from a production issue. And if some such thing happens, such production issue happens, then of course we come up with definite action items, like you spoke about 5 whys. So some action items come outside of that 5 whys. Then we adhere to the SLAs of those incident and action items, so that again not to repeat the same mistake again. And that again defines that what was the quality. We go back, we look back at what we missed during development or during design. Other thing is, again, the code we have to, as per Razorpay scale, we have to write code as much as scalable as we can. Right? So the throughput, scalability, over underutilization of resources, it should be auto mode. switch, right? That if a scale increases, our code also is able to handle that. So that also defines how engineering was done. So, and that defines again ultimately the quality. Security compliance is another thing which Razorpay adheres to. You can say we don't want to use any end of life support versions, or we don't want to use any library which is not compliant because it's all financial complications as well. So we take care of, we have a lot of code scanning tools, static code, dynamic code, and these tools are available which you can integrate in your CI/CD pipelines. And it will tell that if any security issues is present or if you're using any non-supported version of library. So I think these combination of all these will help, and it actually helps us in accessing the scores of the whole the product.
Okay, the next question we have is, how do you foster a culture of continuous improvement and learn from failures within the engineering teams? Yeah, learning from failures is very important, and failure is something that at least we are not new to. The Razorpay, we conduct a lot of experiments and not all succeed. One such example I can think of is a decomp activity that we did. So we had a use case within a larger monolith, and we wanted to make it into a microservice to maintain it better and to scale it better. So we were evaluating how do we do this decomposition. The monolith was written in PHP, and we were considering should we just take the module and post a PHP microservice or rewrite it in Golang. At the time, we thought rewriting in Golang would take more time. So we took the module and sort of made it as a microservice and rolled it out. It took us close to a month of doing this entire activity. And later on, we decided, okay, now we want to add new features and we want to scale it better. So let's start the rewrite activity. But what we sort of realized is the rewrite also took the same amount of time. In fact, that activity gave us clarity that if we had sort of rewritten it from day one instead of actually moving into PHP, we would have saved a lot of time because we didn't have to do a whole amount of work. So that lesson we learned from that experiment is that, okay, anytime we are creating a new microservice or doing a decomp activity, do it directly in Golang because it would probably take the same amount of time. Yeah, and another another thing that I can think of is so we had a use case where we had to store certain configs and perform rule-based evaluations. So for this, we were evaluating how do we sort of implement this. We had already present in-house complex rule engine. So it was built to handle a very complex and large set of scenarios. What we wanted was very simple, but still we didn't want to we didn't want to rewrite the entire thing. So we thought, okay, let's integrate with that rule engine and make it work. But there were certain concerns with consistency, and we were sort of okay with that because we didn't want to sort of create our own. And we went ahead and started integrating with it. We spent a lot of time writing SDK around it and sort of ensuring that we support all the consistency issues around it, build tooling around ensuring that the consistency is present between the rule engine as well as the service and stuff. And we realized it's sort of getting hard to maintain. And we started rethinking would it is the trade-off worth it? And we sort of did an experiment where let's see if we can maintain these configs in a file. So we sort of did that. We went and put those configs in a file, and we saw if it works out, and it actually worked, and it removed our consistency issue and also sort of decoupled the dependency that we had earlier with the complex rule engine. So that is another lesson that we had, is that you don't have to necessarily go over the board and do over engineering. Sometimes simple techniques work. Don't necessarily have to use complex rule engines for simple use cases. So we not only, it is not just a team which has gone through this phase, which learns from this failure, but we also publish these failures publicly in our channels. So people are also aware what went wrong and what are the lessons learned. And we sort of ensure that this experimentation mindset is present across the engineers. Uh, we have access to POC accounts within AWS where we can run our experiments and we can sort of try and figure out what works and what doesn't. This sort of fostering experimentation culture ensures that we not only learn from failures but also have this continuous improvement that we are looking for.
Okay, next question is, it's a big question. How does Razorpay approach the balance between speed of delivery and maintaining high engineering standards? Basically, how do we manage trade-off when it comes for a strict deadline and we still have to maintain our engineering excellence in our deliveries? So, I think it all comes from learning what I have seen in Razorpay or I have learned from other companies or friends. So the thing which I want to start with is that you not only it covers the functional delivery when we speak about delivery, right? Because we spoke earlier that we want to cover functional plus non-functional thing. So it becomes very important that when you are setting up a deadline for you or you are setting some goal for you, you consider all the aspects of engineering. You can't say that, okay, only feature development will take this time. So, okay, this is the date I will be able to deliver the product. But what about maybe you want to design a scalable solution, then you need time for perf testing. What about that if you over engineer, it will incur the high cost for your service. Then will you go back and do cost optimization later? Doesn't make sense. So you consider the cost impact also when you are designing a solution. Or if I say that all the monitoring, alerting, that also has to be counted when you are giving your deadline for a project. So there are a lot of non-functional requirements which I think very standard in engineering culture that you have to keep in mind when giving deadline. That helps you in one sense that you have buffer of doing all of this when you are committing a timeline. Plus you have you will keep these things in mind in your tech solutioning so that it doesn't lose when you go out of when you deliver actually. Basically the planning becomes easier. Third, apart from planning and keeping non-functional in mind, the next thing is automation, because I have seen a lot of teams struggling with mundane work. They're doing same thing again and again. And when it comes the pressure of delivery, it becomes more crucial, or it becomes more prone to errors, that manual errors happen. It keeps happening. If you're doing something manual, you won't be able to make it such a proof system that no error come or no failure come. So automation comes into help there. You automate, you write scripts. Like for example, we have a lot of scripts that if we, in case in worst situation, if some data issue happens, then we have a lot of recovery scripts that how to recover the data, maybe from a checkpoint or from another data storage or from any pipeline. So these automations really help if AWS messes up or if any Redis messes up. So these things helps us. Again, it is about maintaining data consistency, about maintaining the standards what we follow here. Other thing is when we talk about automation script, it ultimately ties to reusing, that if written once, reuse it. So if there are a lot of components which in Razorpay which are built with platform mindset, of course. Some are written with open source mindset also. So these this mindset, these components again help in maintaining the balance between your delivery and engineering standard, because you're using something which is already approved by a wider audience or which are already working in production with huge benefits. If you're reusing same in your project, you don't need another benchmark or you don't need another testing that if this tool will work. So again, the using of code components or using of libraries help. Other is which I believe, even though you do all of this, it's possible that you will have to negotiate your timelines with your leadership team or within your team itself that okay, there is a delay, and it's better the early you call out your delay rather than after the delay happened. So and that is of course leadership support that as well. You just have to find out the path that how will you recover from this delay, or how will you whatever next goal or the new goal you have set up, how do you reach there? Like for example, I have few personal experiences that we were working on a very critical project, and it was prioritized everywhere, but suddenly some end of life and some compliance issue came together that we have to be compliant with the new version because the older version was going end of support. So we had to rearrange the critical project versus this end of life or compliance update, and we did that, and it was fully justified because we can't, of course, skip the compliance issues, or we can't reuse the older version in production because it will ultimately maybe if we are spending more time on critical project and if we are using the end of support version, it's a negative impact. Maybe you will lose more developer productivity if you are using a end of support version because it can introduce new defects or new issues. So we have to define the urgent and important metrics. I think it's again a very common metrics used in engineering, business, maybe in personal life as well. That what is important, what is urgent, you do it right away. But if something is not urgent, something is not important, it's good to have kind of thing you deprioritize it. Maybe take it in a next phase, take it in a plan it when you have enough time or when you have enough bandwidth. So finding that that MVP, what you want to deliver, which will be impactful, which will be which you have enough clarity and which you have enough prioritization and urgency, you find that particular piece and backward go to your plan that okay, I will deliver this and then this and then this. So again, I started with the statement that it comes with knowledge or experiences of your previous project. So that's what one thing Razorpay definitely does, that for a bigger projects, we have a sort of look back documents that what happened in the last quarter or what happened in last month, and then share your learnings with a bigger audience that okay, these things can be improved if something similar project is taken by the other team.
Okay, the next question we have is, how does Razorpay ensure developer productivity? I think we were talking about how do we meet deadlines and also ensure that we ensure that the quality of standards are followed. One of the reasons we are able to achieve, we are able to ensure that the quality is there along with the meeting deadlines is that we focus a lot on developer productivity, and developer productivity is so important that we sort of ensure it's part of our culture. So I think you spoke a bit on we have a common framework that we use to build any new service or to add any feature. So having this common frame, basically it's like a bootstrap code that's readily available. To give an example, we recently rolled out a new microservice, and it took us less than a single day to start from scratch and rolling out a new microservice into a staging environment. It included not just the base code, but also the CI/CD pipelines, and we use Kubernetes, so all the Kubernetes files and everything came ready-made. This sort of saves a lot of time in development, and we get to focus more on the product and the business use case. So we have a frame. So we use Go, and so we have a framework called Go Foundation that we have written in house. We took a lot of inspirations from other Go frameworks, and we built this. This helps us ensure that we do things quickly. It is not just the the base code and stuff, but we also promote people, whatever they write, ensure that they write it in a reusable format, that it can be easily pluggable into another system. So we encourage people to write packages than code most of the time. We have a central internal repository of these such packages. We call it co-utils. It's essentially Golang utilities that any team can use. We have close to 20 plus packages that are contributed across multiple engineers within Razorpay, and this is sort of open. Anyone can contribute to it and anyone can use it. Some of the packages which have seen higher success rate within GoUtils, we have actually open sourced them, which a lot of other companies use. And we also sort of conduct NPS surveys, like how we conduct NPS surveys to understand what is the customer feeling of a product. So we also conduct these NPS surveys amongst developers to see what are the challenges that they're facing when it comes to rolling out a new service. What are their blockers? How can we make sure they're more productive? So we realize that there requires a dedicated team to actually own some of these initiatives, which is why within Razorpay we have a developer productivity team. So this team's goals are to ensure that they come up with tooling and support to ensure that other developers are able to roll out things quickly. A lot of innovations actually came out of this team. Like one problem we were facing earlier was that we were not able to, multiple developers were not able to test features at the same time, because there's only few environments that you can have. So we came up with a new idea where we can spin up new environments as and when we need. So we created a new system called DevStack, where we can actually spin up ephemeral services, databases, and all the dependencies needed, so everyone can test their systems independently. We started utilizing this platform to not just developer testing, but also in automation testing. We presented this idea in KubeConf and other conferences, and we got much. So this particular idea resonated well with a lot of developers within this community. And when it comes to productivity, it just doesn't stop with frameworks and tooling. It also sort of a lot of it also relies on how easy it is to use your service. Razorpay is known for its good documentation and API first sort of a culture. So even within Razorpay, we have we ensure that we have the same quality set of documentations, internal documentations that we have. They're easily discoverable. People are able to deploy another service so easily and integrate with them easily. So these sort of activities we do to ensure that developers are to ensure that the productivity is well. Okay. Next question we have is how to manage and prioritize tech debt. Tech debt, just like any debt, is important, and it is something to look out for. I would say there is any team which doesn't have tech debt. If they have, they must be probably over engineering it and not really achieving the outcome as such. So, but the important thing is, how do you keep track of the tech debt? So that's where the measure of tech debt comes in. So we measure tech debt based on how many days it takes for us to cover it in the future, and we sort of ensure that there is a healthy balance present. And if we notice that the tech debt is piling up, then it's probably time to take action. So in Razorpay, we follow sprints, and before each sprint, we do sprint planning. One of the activities that we do as part of sprint planning is to look at how much, what items of tech debt can be picked as part of the sprint, and is it something that is beneficial to pick it then, or it can be prioritized later based on the importance of it. And we also have these alerts set up within our tracking system, where if a particular item is aged so long and it is not picked up for a really long time, it's probably time to look at it, because otherwise it's gonna probably haunt us in the form of an incident in the production in the future at some point. And tech debt is not just the known use cases, but it also the unknowns that we see in production. Like we have when we roll out a new service, it is common that we have certain incidents that we notice in production, some issues, some bugs that pop up, or some escalations from customers. Uh, so it is important to track each of these incident and categorize it into where it falls into. And is it a tech debt or is it a bug, or what is actually the action item that we have to do? We sort of talked about 5 eyes. So what action items came out of it? Which of them fall actually under the tech debt bucket? Which of them are actually bugs? So having this sort of analytics and view on this data helps in prioritizing it whenever there is necessary. And sometimes it's not possible to pick these items as part of the sprints. There is always importance given to rolling out new features to the customers who are really, which is more beneficial for them. But these solving these tech debt items actually solve the larger maintenance and engineering sort of things. So to solve this problem to some extent, what we have done is we come up with monthly bug bash sessions where we spend a dedicated day only for tech debt. Like developers can actually pick which items they want to solve that day, and they end up trying to solve as much as tech debt as possible within that day. And what we've noticed is these days have been really helpful because most of the tech debt items are small improvements and small fixes that we had to do, and developers don't get that focus time to do those things. Having this one day dedicated for it helps them squash them faster, and we see a huge reduction of the duration of tech debt within that short span. And again, it all comes down to the culture of ownership, as to the team has to own the tech debt as their own thing, and they need to ensure that wherever possible they are solving it. Like, it is not necessary that it has to be planned in the sprint. Say perhaps you're working on a feature and you see that a small improvement can solve it then and there, might as well do it. So we have this concept where leave the code better than you found it. So this sort of a culture helps ensure that there is less tech debt to deal with in the first place. That's all, folks. We hope you have answered most of the questions that you have. And if you have any more questions, you can post in the comment section, or you can use our Twitter handle, Razorpay Engineering, and tag us on Twitter.
And if you have any more topics which you want to hear from us, or where we can share our learning, share our experiences, happy to host such sessions in future.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.